All righty. Let's see here. Get this turned on. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Turn that down a little bit. All right. Hello, my friends. It's Jill Osborne from the Interstitial Cystitis Network. Sunday, January 19th, 2025. It is time for another live IC support group meeting. Interstitial cystitis. Who would have thought when I was a kid that I would become a specialist in pelvic issues and bladder issues? Anne starts. Hello, Anne. Hello, Debbie. We are simulcasting right now on Facebook and YouTube. When I'm looking straight, I'm looking at Facebook. When I'm looking over here, I'm looking at YouTube. Hello, YouTube. And starts the meeting off with a help cry. Help, I have a bladder flare and I have a long dental procedure on Tuesday. I don't want to cancel. Already started antibiotics for the procedure. Any advice? Honey, what kind of flare are you having? Are you having a bladder wall flare or a pelvic floor flare? Because that helps us determine what to do about it. So, if you can tell us what kind of flare you're having, if you can tell us when it started, what do you think triggered the flare, that will help me help you. All right, my friends. Stretching, it's always a challenge. So, my name is Jill Osborne. I'm the National IC Support Group leader. I work with men and women who have had pelvic problems, bladder problems, prostate problems, bowel problems, pelvic floor muscle problems. I've been doing this for many, many years. And the best part of my job are coming and doing meetings because I get to meet with you. We can always go into Zoom. If anybody wants to go into Zoom to talk to me directly, we can do that too. Normally, when I do these meetings, I do a little 30-minute intro and then we go on to take your questions. I have three things that I want to talk about today. And so let me just address Anne here. So, Anne, again, Anne is struggling with a severe flare right now. And we need to know what kind of flare you're having. Okay. So, what do you think triggered the flare? When did it start? Etc. That's the only way that I can help you is if you do that. Is if you tell me that. Debbie said, "Has anyone been in denial in regards to IC?" Oh, hell yeah. Of course. Of course. Oh, you'd be amazed at the stories I get from patients who, they stop reading everything. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. They're just doing their thing. Hello, Katie. Katie from Belgium. Nice to see you, hun. Very, very nice to see you. Anne says she doesn't know what kind of flare last night. Tons of urgency. You've been to pelvic floor physical therapy. Okay. So, Anne, what is your big concern about your dental appointment? Are you just worried that you're going to have to get up and pee all the time? You're going to have a root canal? Anne says her flare may be diet related. Coffee, do not use estrogen. Girl, what the hell are you doing drinking coffee? Stop the coffee. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But especially before a big dental procedure, medical procedure, your job is to calm and soothe your bladder as much as you can right now. Debbie says, great, because my doctor thinks I'm nuts. He says, we've been doing this for 20 years. You have IC. Of course I have IC. It's always something. Lisa, thank you. Lisa, thank you so much for the 50 stars. Really, really appreciate it on Facebook. Hello, Donna, girl. We're due for a talk eventually. All right. So listen. Okay. So Anne says, yes, she's having an extraction and a bone graft. Girl, that is a short procedure. Do not freak out about having an extraction. I've had several. Y'all remember last year I was missing 2 teeth right here. And I now have my implants. The extraction. So, a couple of things. So, concept number one is the anesthesia, the numbing agent that they give you. There are some numbing agents that have epinephrine in them, and epinephrine makes you pee, and it can make your heart race. There are other medications that anesthetics that do not contain epinephrine. The ones that do not, you have to use more, and they last for a shorter period of time. Whenever I have dental work, because I already have a freaky heart, in fact, I'm gonna wear a heart monitor for a couple weeks starting next week, just out of curiosity, just to see what it's doing. Yeah, you're getting the non-epi. Excellent. It's the right thing to do. We did half and half when I had my 2 extractions. I had, a dental cleaning gone awry, and she severed roots. She was using a water thing, and I don't know what the hell she did. Excuse me for swearing, but the night after I had my dental cleaning, I had a slice across 2 roots, and it was a new dental hygienist who has since been fired. You just don't wanna pee, you're nervous on that. Honey, it's gonna be fast and it's gonna be fine. Girl, you know, so I don't know if you guys remember, but I talked about Dr. Jason Kutch. Dr. Jason Kutch is a researcher at USC who focuses on widespread pain and how do we calm our nervous system down when we're starting to get very, very agitated, when or hypersensitized, for lack of a better term. And he has a PhD in mathematics, and now he's doing really outstanding research with IC and pelvic pain. I mean, his work is amazing. Now, in his case, what was so interesting is when he was in grad school in Chicago, he was riding a bike to and back to school, and he started having pelvic pain, and he started having pudendal neuralgia. He has he developed over time a nerve injury. And that nerve injury became what we now know as widespread pain. And, when you're the patient, like I'm a patient, his name is Dr. Jason Kutch, Kutch. So, he's like so many of us. There was an original injury. The injury then traumatized nerves, and now we've got more sensitive nerves throughout the body. And there are periods of time when the nerves are calm, and then there are periods of time when the nerves get very irritated and your pain levels tend to go up across your body. It's called widespread pain. I'm going to be building a new website on that. Anyway, so I asked him, really, you couldn't ask for somebody with more credentials. It's like, well, what do you do? What do you do when you start feeling your nervous system getting amped up? His answer was so interesting because he said, I surf. I surf. And I'm like, well, that's interesting because for me, I tend to kind of hide. When I tend to get when my body gets all funky, I tend to go into a quiet room and hide. He goes, no, 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 no. I go to the beach and I surf. And I was like, why? He goes, because your brain is so focused on the water and the air and the wind, and then you trying to stand on a surfboard and you working on your balance and things like that. He said, you keep your brain so busy that it calms everything else down. And I've talked about this before. You know, if you were to look at a brain on a brain scan, um, and you're watching it light up, it's like a thunderstorm. Different parts of the brain light up, and it's beautiful. Like if you've ever flown in a jetliner over a thunderstorm, as I did one year, it was fantastic. You're just looking out the window, looking, that's lighting up and that's lighting up, and it's just beautiful. Well, that's kind of like your brain. That's what your brain looks like. And the thing is the more you keep it working on other things, the less it can focus on your pain. And so his experience with surfing, and then they did a research study that they just published, is exactly what we all have to really understand here is that widespread pain is related to a nervous system under distress. So what we have to do is we've got to calm that nervous system down, and we've got to keep it busy doing things. Like, I have right now a really complicated jigsaw puzzle on my kitchen table. I have got a painting over in the corner of my room that I'm working on. I do puzzles every night. My goal is to keep this brain as young and healthy as I possibly can. All right, hold on a sec. And you guys, I still have stuff I need to talk about, but your questions here are really good. Debbie says, just had interstim go awry 1 week into final implant and battery malfunction. Girl, had to replace the battery and do a different pocket. Yep. No, we talk about that. And Debbie also says that when she's feeling her pain amp up, she works out and you forget the pain. And again, that's another way of keeping your nervous system busy and your nervous system involved. What did I do this morning? I scrubbed a bathtub. Every weekend, I work on something in my house that needs to be done. So last weekend, I regrouted my kitchen tile around my sink, and this weekend, my big project was to deal with a lot of soap scum in a bathroom. Anyway, I rocked it. It's gone now. Yes. Joe said, I'm close to having an ileostomy. Will this affect my bladder? Joe, are you going to have the ileostomy because you got inflammatory bowel disease? And did you take Elmeron? Because we now know Elmeron is associated with that. So, should it affect your bladder? I wouldn't expect it to affect your bladder that much, but it's a substantial surgery. I think your nervous system is going to get upregulated, going to have a bit more pain for a while. You're going to have to do things that I mean, you're not going to do an ileostomy on Advil or Tylenol. So you're going to need some fairly aggressive pain care for the short term. And the blessing of being on that pain care is you're probably not going to feel your bladder that much. So but we do have new research now that has established a very strong association between Elmeron, pentosan polysulfate, and inflammatory bowel disease. And what makes that even yet more interesting is we have also known, and we have several publications on this, that patients who start Elmeron who start developing diarrhea and bowel issues, when you stop the med, it goes away. There is no clear indicator of cause and effect than that. But for some people, the bowel changes become so severe that they have to have a portion of their bowel removed. So that's yet another thing we're worried about. Okay, so getting back to the flare, if you go on over to the IC Network website, icnetwork.org, there's a whole section on flare management, including a hour-by-hour guide. I need to get into my content. All right, my friends, we have things to talk about. So I have been working very hard now to make sure that I'm producing things. Less gaming, more production, because of my natural retreat to stress is to go play a computer game. I'm not playing computer games right now. So what did I just finish? I just finished our new food list. Okay. And so I want to go over this with you. This is free. It is available on the IC Network website. It is expanded from our last food list. And it has, for example, it still has the 3 columns, bladder friendly, foods we're trying, foods to avoid. But let's just go over this just a little bit because I have a pretty big FAQ in it now. I have lots more information on this. So again, you can download this right on the IC Network website. The old list is gone, the new list is up. So, diet modification is a critical first step in gaining control over your symptoms and reducing inflammation. The challenge is that you're probably getting a lot of very, very mixed messages on social media and also while you're talking with other patients. So, this guide should answer quite a few of your questions. So, question number 1. How do foods irritate your bladder? Well, listen, when you have an injured, infected, or estrogen atrophied bladder, urine penetrates more deeply into the bladder wall where it causes irritation and inflammation. We call this chemocystitis. It's basically a chemical injury of the bladder. Question number 2, is every IC patient diet sensitive? And the answer is no. There are distinct groups, phenotypes in the IC patient population, each with their own treatments and their own diet sensitivities. This is the first diet guide to break down diet and food based upon your phenotype. So, for example, patients with Hunner's lesions will have the most severe food reactivity because they have open wounds in their bladder and their bladders are very, very sensitive. Odds are they're going to be on the IC diet for a significant period of time until those lesions are treated or they have a chance to heal. Okay? So the patients with the most severe diet sensitivity are always going to be Hunner's lesion patients. Patients with estrogen atrophy, genitourinary syndrome of menopause, remember, they don't have that nice thick coating of mucus on their bladder wall because they don't have the estrogen anymore. And so their bladder's ability to defend themselves is now compromised. So the foods that they could eat in their 40s, they might not be able to eat in their 60s just because their bladder is more vulnerable. So these are the patients, for example, that are going to become very, very frustrated when they can't have that 1 cup of coffee a day that they enjoyed in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, but maybe in their 60s. Again, that's not a disease process. That's just aging. Katie, I'll get there. Okay. Um, Patients with pelvic floor dysfunction, believe it or not, also have diet sensitivity, but it's a short term diet sensitivity because when you have very, very tight muscles, what happens? Blood flow is restricted. Those muscles squeeze blood vessels. And if your bladder is supposed to get 24, 28 units of blood a day and it's only getting 10, are you going to have a healthy bladder wall? And the answer, of course, is no. There's no way because your bladder does not have proper oxygen or nutrition to heal well. So it's very common for patients with myofascial urgency frequency syndrome to become food sensitive. But the food sensitivity will go away as blood flow is restored after you've done your physical therapy. Okay. And patients with widespread pain. Now, for those of us with widespread pain, because we've got an uber sensitive nervous system, we're just not going to do well with caffeine, period. Neurostimulatory foods, chocolate, caffeine, etc. And that's not short term, that's really long term. I haven't eaten chocolate since my 20s because I know that when I eat chocolate, everything goes bad for me. And I don't do caffeine now. I don't do anything with epinephrine in, anything, I mean, we just have to protect these nervous system. So, what's wrong with having 1 cup of coffee a day? What's wrong with that? And hold on, YouTube, need to fix that a little bit. Well, you have to understand that, I mean, so your bladder has the largest single cells in the human body. It's really, really interesting when you think about it. The purpose of the bladder is to hold toxic waste and to not let toxic waste travel throughout the body. So when toxic waste is delivered from your kidneys down to your bladder, it's your bladder's job to hold it until you can pee it out. Well, the bladder lining is composed of the largest single cells in the human body. These are giant umbrella cells. And under an electron microscope, they're hexagons. They look like a beehive. It's fascinating. And they have what we call tight junctions. They are really stuck together so no urine can get past them. But when one of these cells is damaged, there's a little tiny stem cell underneath it. So think extra large pizza, and underneath that extra large pizza is a little tiny green pea. So the pizza gets destroyed. The green pea is the stem cell. Now, the stem cell has to grow and expand and change shape to fill in where the umbrella cell used to be. It takes 2 weeks for that to happen. These are enormous cells. And unfortunately, while that stem cell is growing, It is exquisitely vulnerable to acid. I was at a lecture at National Institutes of Health. We talked very, very specifically. The lecturer was Dr. Anthony Schaefer, and he just flat out said, one cup of coffee is going to destroy an entire generation of cells. So if you have one cup of coffee a day, one green tea a day, one soda a day, while your bladder's trying to heal it, you literally are destroying any healing that's happening. It's your bladder cannot heal. It cannot repair itself if you are pouring acid on it every day. And this is why we want you to be on the diet for at least 3 months just to give your bladder time to heal and recover. Right? It just has to recover. So, what can you drink in place of coffee? Well, we've got herbal coffees that are really good. One's called Dandy Blend. It's in the IC Network shop. It's fabulous. No caffeine, no acid. You can drink that. And then once your bladder has a chance to heal, then we're going to go back to some real coffees, but we're going to do a low acid real coffee like a Bella Rosa decaf, Bella Rosa half calf, or Tyler's coffee. We don't want to go back to a typical Starbucks coffee because, acidity matters. And coffee, by its very nature, tends to be very acidic, depending upon the altitude that the coffee beans are grown at. The lower the altitude, the lower the acid, if I remember correctly. Okay. What can you drink in case, if for those of you who love tea, what can you drink instead of green tea or black tea? Well, you're going to dive into herbal tea. Chamomile herbal tea, peppermint herbal tea, rooibos herbal teas are good. We have a fantastic rooibos tea in the IC Network shop. That's wonderful. Is cranberry bladder friendly? Hell no, it's not bladder friendly. We call it the acid bomb. Is fast food bladder friendly? Well, that's a lot of tomatoes, ketchup on it. It's going to cause more of an acid irritation. My beef with fast food really is that it's manufactured food and you don't know where it's come from. You don't know where that meat has come from. It could come from China for all we know. And fast food tends to be very, very heavily spiced, especially things like chicken tenders, hot, spicy chicken sandwiches. And those hot spices might irritate your bladder. So if you're gonna do fast food, go to Subway and get a turkey sandwich. Don't get pepperoni sandwich, please. You know better than that. Get a turkey sandwich, get a roast beef sandwich, something like that. Is alcohol bladder friendly? Of course, not really. No. And we have on the IC network we've been doing a very long, large alcohol study in IC, and we know that 95% of IC patients share that alcohol has flared them in the past, but there are some workarounds. So, for example, for beer, we know that Guinness dark brown stout beers tend to be more irritating than pale ale beers. So if you're going to do a beer, go for a pale ale. You can do some pre-leaf, follow it up with some water to dilute it. But again, not if we're trying to heal your bladder. If you want a wine, you're going to do a low acid wine like a Chardonnay or Merlot. If I tend to go for a hard ciders, like a hard apple cider, a hard pear cider. Although I am not doing alcohol this year at all. I am just trying to heal my body. And then for liquor and spirits, it's the clear liquors. Sake was actually the most bladder friendly in our study, along with vodka to a lesser extent. But you have to make sure that you're using bladder friendly mixers. So you cannot go for the lemon juice. You cannot go for the orange juice, things like that. You got to be smart with your mixers, and at the same sense, if you can have the drink on ice. If you're going to do wine, make a wine cooler. Put a little bit of wine on ice with some sparkling water. Anything we can do to dilute the residual acid. But again, remembering our phenotyping, if you've got Hunner's lesions, you would be very, very foolish to do alcohol because you're going to put alcohol directly into an open wound and that's going to hurt. You got to pick your timing. All right. Can you eat fruit? Yes, you can eat fruit. You can actually eat a lot of fruit, pears, apples. Go for, remember the thing with fruits and vegetables is the fruits are going to be the lowest in acid when they're really, really ripe. The best place for you to get fruit is at a farmer's market. The worst place for you to get fruit is at a grocery store where the fruit is not picked before it's ripe and they allow it to ripe on the, on the tables and stuff. The problem with that is that, I mean, it's so interesting that unripe fruit is very, very acidic, but as it ripens, the sugars go up and the acids go down. So the riper, the better. Believe it or not, bananas in the IC studies were found to be quite soothing for most people. Although some of you are more banana sensitive, odds are you're probably a Hunner's lesion patient. Um, Tomatoes, remember, it's about the quantity of acid. So most of you could probably have a slice of tomato on a sandwich, especially if it's a yellow tomato. Those are already low in acid because one slice of tomato has very, very little acid in it. You compare that to a cup of tomato sauce, that's a dozen tomatoes, the juice of a dozen tomatoes that have been stewed down, and there's a ton of acid in a cup of tomato sauce. The homegrown yellow pear tomatoes, yellow cherry tomatoes, are heirloom tomatoes. Odds are you might be able to get away with those, but just remember quantity matters. And again, if you got Hunner's lesions, tomatoes might be off for you. Why can some patients eat some foods while others can't? Well, again, it depends upon your phenotype, but also understanding that we have a lot of individual sensitivities. So, one of the foods that I'm really, really sensitive to, which is just so freaky stupid, is oatmeal. We figured that out in my 20s. I had terrible IBS in my 20s. My doctor said, eat oatmeal every day. Believe me, I ate oatmeal every day and I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I spent many, many mornings laying in the fetal position in my bathroom. I called them bend over and screamers. And my sister, finally, after a couple of years of me really, really suffering, gave me a book that talked not only about food allergies, but what we call a food sensitivity. And a food sensitivity, it doesn't cause a traditional allergenic effect. Your throat doesn't swell. You don't have trouble breathing. It's more that your body doesn't know how to process it. It's a true sensitivity. So I am not allergic to oatmeal as much as I am sensitive to oatmeal. And so one of the tips the book gave was just stop all of your grains for a couple of days, but rice. And as soon as I stopped all my grains, my IBS went away. It was amazing. And then it said, okay, reintroduce your grains one at a time. So I reintroduced corn, I was fine. I reintroduced wheat, I was okay. Reintroduced oatmeal, next morning I was back on the floor in the bathroom. And interestingly, I've worked with a lot of patients who have that same oatmeal sensitivity. It's quite interesting. So there might be some individual food sensitivities in there that you have to figure out. Why are there different diet lists? So let's go over the history of the diet list real quick. So the first diet lists were created by patients and support groups. I think I got my first diet list back in 1992, and it was a little brochure that the ICA did back then. And it was just very, very minimal information. But then we had an IC support group leader. Her name was Beverly Lauman. She ran the IC support group in Orange County, California. She happens to be, in my opinion, probably the smartest in history IC patient out there. And listen, I'm no slouch. She's smarter than me. There's no doubt about that. And she dove into that research in depth. She got her IC as she was getting a PhD in biochemistry. I think it was biochemistry. And she is the one who created the first 3-column list. In fact, she did it for us. She wrote for the IC network for many years. We have a whole bunch of her columns on our website that you can read on all sorts of different topics, from chocolate to cinnamon to picnics to holiday meals. It's called Fresh Taste by Beverly. And she also had a fabulous book called A Taste of the Good Life, a cookbook for an IC diet. It's no longer available because she is retired, but her knowledge is unprecedented. And it's just her ability to research an issue is just, to me, amazing. So she is the one who created the first big list. And we circulated it on our website. But, you know, one of the things that we were encountering is that there were patients who were saying that they were afraid to eat. And some of you just stopped eating and developed malnutrition. And as we were discussing this one day, we went, you know what? We have got not just give you a list of foods to avoid, we need to give you a list of foods you can eat specifically for patients who are afraid to eat. And that's where this big giant list happened. And it was me, it was Bev Lauman, it was Julie Beyer, the first registered dietitian to work with IC. She has 2 books, customizing the it's let's see, what are her books? Oh, come on, I'm having a brain moment right now. Anyway, they're available on our website. Um, and they're on my shelf. Hold on. Where are they? Okay. Customizing the IC diet. Customizing the IC diet. That's the name of her book. And then she has a second book. It's a cookbook for IC. And she has a book to educate registered dietitians on the IC diet. And what makes Julie's story all the more interesting is because she's an IC patient herself, she was the one who first went to the national meetings for dietitians around the country and said, hey, it turns out we have a group of patients who really need help with their diet. It's called interstitial cystitis. And they kept pushing her away, saying, prove it, we need research. And she went back over and over and over again. And really, it's the first. I know that there's somebody else online right now who's saying they're the bladder dietitian. Well, I have to tell you, their work is based on Julie's initial work 20 years ago. Julie is an amazing woman. All righty. So anyway, it was Beverly, it was me, it was Julie, and then we had the executive director of the ICA at the time, who was a registered dietitian, and then Barbara Shorter, who is a registered dietitian who actually worked with Dr. Robert Moldwin and led the IC diet research, the first studies that came out there. So we all came together and we created this big master list to give patients a list of foods that they can eat. Now, people went on and did their own thing. Bev retired. Julie pretty much retired. The ICA started doing their own thing. We kept this list because the focus is so incredibly important. But in the interim, we've had multiple studies now that have proven that diet modification matters. So that argument that was given to Julie, hey, we don't believe you, give us a research study. We now have multiple research studies. So in our new 2025 guide, the first thing we have is the research-based list. And it is on the second page. So you can see it right here. And that's going to be the most bothersome foods and the least bothersome foods. Okay. So, as an example, the most bothersome foods found in research studies are coffees, teas, sodas, alcohols, citrus, cranberry, um, hot, spicy foods, and some preservatives like MSG, as well as artificial sweeteners like NutraSweet, etc. The least bothersome foods in the studies are going to be water, milks, and then lots of fruit, plain meat, things like that, usually fine. Okay. So we always say you start with the diet list first. I mean, the research diet list first. Okay. Then, when you're ready to try more foods, then you can come to our bigger list. Now, our last edition was alphabetized. Now I've broken it up into categories. So I have a section on beverages, a whole page on different beverages that you can do and can't do. A section on grains and pastries, a big section on spices, a big section on vitamins and supplements, a section on snacks and sweets, condiments, dressings, oils, and soups, food additives, dairy, meats, fruits, and veg. Okay. So I think now, now understand that this is a living document here. Obviously, we can't have every food in this list. Like somebody asked me yesterday about star fruit. I have no idea. I've never eaten star fruit in my life. I have no idea if star fruit is a problem for IC. They also asked about mushrooms. Mushrooms are perfectly fine for IC. There's nothing acidic about a mushroom. You can eat mushrooms every day. It's fine. Okay. So, the way I have this worked out, let's just go through a list here real quick. Um, let's talk about milkshakes, bladder-friendly milkshakes if you're lactose tolerant. Vanilla, coconut, caramel are usually bladder-friendly. In the try it column, you could try blueberry, peach, or any other icy-friendly fruits. But in the foods to avoid, we say, you know what? Lose the chocolate shake, lose the coffee shake, lose the mocha shake. When we talk about um, wines, we have the low acid Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc as foods we're trying. Then the foods to avoid, it's the acidic wines, champagne, sparkling wines, Gewürztraminer, Muscat, and Semillon. And you know what? We created that list with the help of a winemaker. Okay. Um, So, anyway, I'm really proud of this. I think it looks really good. We go over a lot of the supplements also, like acacia fiber, acidophilus, aloe, chondroitin, lactoferrin, PEA, quercetin, the things to and the vitamins. So I had somebody call me and they said, "Can I take biotin?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can take biotin. Why would you think you couldn't take biotin?" She said, "I don't know. I just thought I couldn't." And it's like, no, the only two vitamins that we know have a history of irritating the bladder are going to be vitamin C, things with ascorbic acid in it, and for some patients, B6. Loretta asked, "What do I do? What would I do when dealing with IBS as well? The two diets just don't mesh. Any suggestions?" So if you've got IBS, irritable bowel syndrome is often driven by that widespread pain phenotype. So we've got sensitized nerves throughout the body, including in the bladder and in the bowel. And so there's a fabulous website, helpforibs.com, that I use for all of my IBS information. It's run by a lady named Heather Von Voris. She wrote the book First Year IBS, and she appeared on our website years ago explaining that the biggest issue for IBS is avoiding neurostimulatory products, just like with IC, that things with caffeine, and avoiding things which are rough as they pass through your bowel, like granola, spinach, lettuce. That there's a difference between a soothing, water soluble, gentle fiber as compared to an insoluble fiber, which has the potential of being a little bit more irritating. We tend to do better with soluble, gentle fibers. Now, Wendy, darn it! Oh, I wish I talked to you last week. She asked about ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is fine. I'm gonna have to put that on my list to add in the next thing. So for anybody who has anything that isn't here, please email me or just let me know so I can put it on my list of things to add. It's doing this is a big project to do. It took me a couple of weeks to do it. All right. Last but not least, at the end, I cover some other important topics. Um, Water, because a lot of patients have questions on water and what's a good water versus the bad water. Honestly, guys, tap water is usually fine. You do not have to invest a lot of money going and buying alkaline water. In fact, we don't recommend alkaline water at all. I drink tap water. If you live in a part of the country that has good tap water, you're good. But if you're flaring after drinking tap water, then you would transition over to a spring water, like Arrowhead water or San Pellegrino still water, although that's a little bit more expensive. If you have well water and you're flaring with your well water, you really need to get your well water tested. I was working with a young family on a farm, like in Iowa, and their daughter developed very, very severe bladder disease, something that we call eosinophilic cystitis. And it turned out their well water was heavily contaminated with pesticides from the farm. And so if you get water delivered to your house just as tap water, you can call the county and ask for the pH of the tap water. You can have your water tested by your county water agency. You should have that tested. Um, and yeah, but you don't have to spend a lot of money buying fancy waters. And please don't drink alkaline water all day. That's not helpful either. Alkalinity is just as bad as acidity. Your goal is to be pH neutral. Anne says here, does estrogen help with flaring? No. No, estrogen improves the health of your bladder wall to make your bladder wall less vulnerable to a flare. But estrogen is not a flare treatment. Okay, let's go to gluten. A small number of patients have reported that their symptoms worsen eating gluten. They prefer to eat gluten-free breads, pastas, etc. I'm one of them. I prefer gluten-free pasta. And Ezekiel bread. I don't like white bread. I get very bloated and gassy, and it's amazing how much water your body carries and how much you swell after you eat white flour products. So is every IC patient gluten intolerant? Absolutely not. A gluten-free diet might be an interesting experiment for a couple of weeks and just see how you do. But just know that anybody out there who says you all need to be gluten-free, that's not true. But I think it was very interesting to go gluten-free for a week or two and see if that makes your symptoms better. If it does, then yeah, maybe you're going to make some changes. I feel much, much better not doing white flour products. And I haven't eaten boxed cereal other than Kick cereal in 30 years. I always felt very ill after eating Cheerios or Raisin Bran. I would have I would have intense nausea and waves of dizziness. And that relates, in my opinion, to a lot of the toxins that are now found on wheat here in the United States. In fact, I really think it's important to buy, if you're going to do cookies, try to buy, uh, if you're going to do white flour products like panettone over the holidays, buy it from Europe. Try to buy European pastas because the American pastas, the American wheat products are really contaminated with Roundup, with glyphosate now, and that's banned in Europe. Glyphosate has a lot of research showing that it can cause cancer, but the American chemical industry is very powerful, and they're arguing that it's safe. I personally don't think it's safe. Somebody had a question here about artificial sweeteners. Now, I see patients have long reported flares after consuming most artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame. As a result, artificial sweeteners are never recommended to IC patients. And in 2023, the World Health Organization issued guidelines discouraging the use of artificial sweeteners for the purpose of weight loss and the prevention of diabetes. Their consumption has actually been linked to weight gain and an increased risk of cardiovascular disease and early death. Now, one of the challenges that we have in the IC world is, especially if you're an older patient, the odds are you were put on a low dose antidepressant or hydroxyzine or on other meds that would have given you dry mouth. And so, what do we turn to if we have dry mouth? We turn to xylitol products, dry mouth gum, dry mouth gel, dry mouth toothpaste, and mouthwash. Well, unfortunately, the Cleveland Clinic released their data of xylitol and other sugar alcohols, which are now linked to the development of blood clots and strokes. So, again, we don't recommend any artificial sweeteners at all. Instead, if you need a sweetener, your first choice is going to be honey, maybe maple syrup, maybe some fruit juices, etc. But the artificial sweeteners, the problem with NutraSweet, aspartame, is it's broken down into formic acid, a precursor to formaldehyde. And it's very, very irritated and very, very irritating to the bladder. There's more I could say on that, but I won't. Okay, so our summary, I'm going to give you the 8-point summary on this diet, okay? The purpose of the IC diet is to prevent irritation and support the healing of injured tissues. Number 2, every patient may have different food intolerances based upon your phenotype. Your job is to find the foods that work the best for you. Number 3, foods high in acid, alkalinity, caffeine, or alcohol are well known to trigger flares. Number 4, drinking 1 cup of coffee, green tea, or soda a day could prevent the bladder wall from healing. We suggest following the IC diet for at least 3 months to allow your bladder to recover. Number 4, start your journey with a small research-based list first. Number 5, when you're ready to try more foods, use our larger list to research your favorite foods and ingredients for more bladder-friendly variations. Number 6, when in doubt, eat real food rather than manufactured or fast foods. Number 7, when possible, try to eat organic fruits, vegetables, and grains to avoid chemical and pesticide contamination. And number 8, if your food sensitivities progressively worsen over time, talk with your doctor. They may need to examine your bladder more closely and rule out other conditions which could be worsening your symptoms, such as a reoccurrence of Hunner's lesion. And then on the very last thing, I have resources from the IC Network shop. All right. So this is available now on the IC Network website. I've already posted the links on our Facebook page, across our social media. I did that on Friday and Saturday. But just go to the front page of the IC Network, scroll down to our blog list, and it's the first blog under food. Because we put out blogs, new content every week, lots of new content every week. Okay, hold on a sec. Let me just put this back together. Well, I didn't put it back. Okay. All right. So, again, the 2025 ICN food list is done. Woohoo! Okay. Now, what's the next thing we need to talk about? Look at this, my friends. Look at this. Dr. Theoharides has issued an updated formula of Cystoprotect with a new beautiful label. So for anybody who takes Cystoprotect, our latest shipment has the new labels, and um, it's it's the same key ingredients, just tweaked a little bit, I think. All right. So new label of Cystoprotect for you. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about before Wendy says, great job. Thank you. Julie says, I ate something and my bladder feels like fire. What can I do to alleviate some of these symptoms? I'm peeing frequently. Okay, so you're having a bladder wall flare. So the very first thing you do is you drink water to dilute your urine. The second thing you can do is alkalinize your urine to try to immediately get rid of that acid irritation. Do something a little bit alkaline. And this is where having a little bit of alkaline water would be fine with me. Or you can take some pre-leaf, or you can take a quarter teaspoon of baking soda in a glass of water. I was working with a patient who was doing a teaspoon of baking soda every morning. Please do not do that. That is way too much sodium, and that's going to raise your blood pressure. So dilute your urine, alkalinize your urine. Then you can go for azo bladder pain relief tablets, which is going to numb your bladder wall. Um, and if the flare persists any longer, you can call your doctor and see if you can get a rescue installation. If you go over to the IC Network website, icnetwork.org, and you sign up for our free newsletter, I only send out a few a year because I'm just too busy. Our gift to you is our 40-page flare management guide with hour-by-hour rescue plans. So go on over to the IC Network website, icnetwork.org, and sign up for our free newsletter, and then you can download our flare management guide. Cherry says, are there any suggestions to get through a PET scan? They make you drink 16 ounces and lie there for 15 minutes not moving. I can pee before it, but after drinking that much, I have to go every 5 minutes. Is it just water, Cherry, or is there is it a special drink that has like a tracer in it to help with the PET scan? Because if it's just water, I mean, I think you could just numb your bladder wall with azo. That would be my best guess, but I don't know off the top of my head if having a PET scan. Usually it's a sugar drink with a tracer. Crap. Well, so ask the radiologist if you can do pre-leaf. If you can take 2 pre-leaf while you're drinking okay, so if it's a sugar drink, odds are it's got citric acid in it. The citric acid has the potential of irritating your bladder. So ask the radiologist if you can take some pre-leaf with it. A calcium pill. Just say calcium. Just say you're just trying to reduce the acid because your bladder wall is a little bit more vulnerable, and see if that would interfere with the tracer. I don't know if it would. Okay. The last thing I wanted to talk about today, here it is. So, oh, thank you, Anne. She says she liked my mug. That was a gift from my sister. Because I'm all about butterflies these days. Here's a very interesting trend that I have noticed in the IC network, in our phone support. Weightlifting, triggering IC. I've worked with many patients over the years, but many more since COVID, who, after being confined to their home, wanted to get fit, They go to the gym and they start lifting. And for some men's really heavy weights, light weights, etc. It can be men, it can be women, all ages. That if you are lifting very, very heavy weights, you could be straining your pelvic floor. That is essentially a pelvic floor injury. So I was working with one man a couple weeks ago who was started lifting very, very heavy weights. He lifted one too heavy, basically dropped to the ground, and he had a hernia that had to be surgically repaired. I mean, he just the weights were way too heavy. But at the same time, he developed all the symptoms of IC. And the hernia surgery didn't stop it. It didn't dawn on him. He didn't know that not only would the weightlifting trigger a problem with his abdominal wall, it also triggers a problem with the pelvic floor. And and it's so I have that's the next article I'm working on. Is an article on weightlifting and how when you strain the wrong way and when you breathe the wrong way, I last night literally what's fascinating to me is I was reading some research on incontinence and weightlifters and competitive weightlifters like Olympic weightlifters. And they were saying like 10%, roughly 10% of weightlifters will leak urine in a competition. But I was shocked that like 60 to 70% doing very, very heavy weights leak poop, and that it's actually well known in weightlifting competitions. It's like, yikes. I'm of that age where, listen, I'm older. And so I wear a mini pad for a very, very specific reason here. The last thing I wanna do is strain my pelvic floor and leak some more. So, anyway, it got me thinking about, um, the things that can tweak the pelvic floor, and I happened to find a really, really good blog, and I just wanted to go over these really quickly. So, what are the 10 common behaviors that can lead to pelvic pain? Uh, I think this is something we can all relate to. Number 1, constipation or straining to have a bowel movement. I can remember when I was a teenager being constipated and pushing really, really hard, and I could feel it in my muscles for a day or 2 afterwards. I mean, I this was before we even knew about the pelvic floor and IC. It's just like I could see the harder I strained, I had some residual pain. So it's very, very important that you not sit on your toilet and push as hard as you can. You're going to tweak your pelvic floor. And I have shared this story. I cared for my elderly parents for many, many years, lost them a year and a half ago. And I always gave them bathroom privacy until the very end when they couldn't wipe themselves. But I literally, it's like, shut the bathroom door, let them do their thing. I did not want to. I wanted them to have dignity. I just wanted them to have dignity. And in the last year, we had a porta potty next to the bed because she kept falling. I mean, she was 94. So she had to have something right next to the bed. So we put a little porta potty right next to the bed. And one day I walked by, the door was open, she was on the toilet, and I'm going to give you a demo of what she was doing. She was pushing so hard that she lifted her butt off the seat and she was like this, like straining as hard as she could to have a poop. And I stopped and I went, "Mom, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And she said, I'm just pooping." And Now I understood why I occasionally found stool on the floor in front of the toilet. That was a sign that her muscles, she had 3 children, were toast. And it was very hard for me to get her to stop doing that. Um, I did not know how extreme the problem was because I had the bathroom door shut. Once I saw and of course she was 94 and it was too late to do pelvic floor work. So Sue says here for me taking magnesium glycinate daily at nighttime because it also helps with muscle spasms, helps constipation. I can tell if I forget. Girl, I am exactly the same way. Listen, magnesium glycinate at bedtime is a game changer for constipation. I don't take the whole pill. I usually just chew half of it before I go to bed. If I do the whole pill, I might be in the bathroom several times the next day. Whereas if I do a half a pill, it's better for me. But for anybody struggling with constipation, look at magnesium. Anne says, will clindamycin cause a bladder flare? It might. Okay, what's the next thing that's going to trigger pelvic pain? Holding your urine for long periods of time or delaying urination. You know, we've all been on long car rides with somebody who doesn't want to stop at the bathroom. I'm thinking of my father when we were kids, in an old station wagon driving to San Diego, 8 hours. The kids, you inevitably once every half hour, one of us would say, need to pee, need to pee. And imagine the poor guy, he's just trying to get to San Diego for Christmas. Um, um, However, there have been incidences where the driver will not let you pee for 5, 6, 7 hours. And what happens to the bladder? Bigger, 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 bigger. And we actually have cases where bladders have literally ruptured in children and other passengers because the driver won't stop and use the restroom. So remember, the bladder is a hollow organ. The most painful thing you can do to the bladder is stretch it. It is really, really important that if you're on a long car ride and you start to feel pain, you need to start thinking about finding a restroom. Anne says here she was told to delay 2 hours. Oh, I don't understand that. Okay, hold on. That doesn't relate to what we're talking about. At least I don't think it is. Holding large volumes of urine gives you basically a hydrodistension without anesthesia. So if you're an ICU and you got bladder pain and listen, if you can tolerate 30 minutes of bladder pain, go for it. But I wouldn't be holding it much longer than that. Sue says, I would like to fly somewhere for the first time, and I'm so worried that I will get stuck on a flight where I can't get out of my seat for hours. So Sue, I've got some videos on our website about traveling and plane strategies. So the rule with a plane is you number one, go to the back of the plane, get in the row right next to the bathroom. That's the best place for you to sit is in a row right next to a bathroom. If you're flying business class, be next to the business class bathroom so that you can jump up easily. Anyway, you can watch the video because I give my whole flying strategy there. All right, what next is going to cause pelvic pain? I hate to say it, sitting all day, sitting at work, sitting playing computer games, sitting in a car. Sitting is the new standing, but the problem with when you're sitting is that you're basically all of the weight of your pelvis is now being held up by your hips and by your pelvic floor. Okay, next. What will next cause pelvic pain? Holding your breath. Holding your breath during activities like lifting heavy objects or exercising can increase pressure on the pelvic floor, potentially leading to pelvic pain. You have to focus on proper breathing techniques, especially if you are weightlifting. So when you inhale, your diaphragm goes down and your pelvic floor goes down. And when you exhale, they come back into the proper position. All right. What's the next one? Clenching your butt muscles. Habitually tensing and clenching your buttock muscles can put a strain on your pelvic floor, leading to pain and discomfort. Becoming aware of this habit and relaxing it can help reduce pain. And we're in a society now for beauty standards or big butts. I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't quite understand it. But if you're doing a lot of butt work and you're straining those glute muscles, that could create and exacerbate an underlying pelvic floor issue. Like, just be normal. You don't have to have a super big butt. You don't have to have a little butt. Just be normal. Holding in your belly, constantly holding in your stomach muscles can strain your pelvic floor and contribute to pelvic pain. Incorrect breathing mechanics during weightlifting. You're not supposed to hold your breath when you're weightlifting because that puts pressure on the pelvic floor muscles. Postural dysfunction. Poor posture, such as slouching or hunching over, can affect the alignment of the pelvis and spine. Edging, the practice of intentionally delaying orgasm during sexual activity, can cause the pelvic floor muscles to become tense. I'm not going to talk about that. Anyway. So there's just a couple of things that we know are going to potentially traumatize and injure those pelvic floor muscles. All right, so we've done the diet, we've done the potential triggers for pelvic floor, we've introduced cystoprotect. Shall we do some questions? All right, now on YouTube, you guys. So they're probably big football games right now going on, right? If the 49ers are not in the playoffs, I don't watch because I'm a California girl. Proudly a California girl. Very proudly. Born here and raised here. All right. Sylvianne said, thank you so much for all the support and knowledge you give us. It makes me feel so not alone and supported. You've been a true lifesaver for me on this journey. Sylvianne, thank you so much. How are you guys doing today? How are you doing? How is your IC? What's going on? Did you have a good week? Did you have a bad week? Now, you guys, if you asked a question and I missed it, please ask again. Don't take it personally. I just miss it. Julie says, what was the book you recommended to find your phenotype? The one on right back there, IC 101. It's not just a bladder disease. Sue says, we have a lot of chlorine in our city water. You can actually smell it. I've been drinking Ice Mountain bottled water and plastic for years now. They say even though the bottle says it's 100% safe online, it says you're drinking up to a credit card for the plastic. Oh, isn't that shocking? You know, like if I could go back to grad school, I've always said that there were a couple of things that I would love to study. I would love to study drug resistant infections, how they develop, how to treat them. I would love to study nanoparticles. The tiniest particles. How can we use nanoparticles to improve our health? And there's something else, like, man, if I won the lotto, I would definitely be funding a consumer organization because, as Julie said here, plastics have become a endemic. They're in our bodies now. They're in our food now. They're in our animals now. They're up in the Arctic Circle. They're in reindeer. They're everywhere. And that's because of the plastic industry. Yet another example of big business putting profit ahead of our safety. We have got to wake up here, especially now in the United States. We do not want bazillionaires making our decisions about what's safe or not because they have an underlying agenda, and that is just to make more money at our expense. They don't care if they hurt us. And so bottled water is a tragedy for basically the environmental carnage that's left behind to find, you know, just beaches covered with plastic in the tropics. It's just heartbreaking. So Sue said, "What is the best way to get at least 5 bottles of water a day without plastics?" Um, I think you might need to invest instead in a water filter. Um, or like we have, which is weird because where I live, our tap water is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And yet we still have water companies that still deliver water, and you can take jugs down to them and fill them up. The question is, can you carry glass, you know? It's a devastating situation we're in right now. I'm just absolutely disgusted with the bazillionaires that are, I mean, all the money that you and I need to live is gone. It's in their bank account. It's in their bank account. I have 10 more years to make enough money to live on in my elder years, which is again one of the reasons why I'm not playing computer games. I have to work at night now. Um, um, and with the threat of eliminating Social Security by the next administration, what the hell are we going to live on? Hope you have a lot of money saved up. Janelle says, and what can we do? Clean everything up and stop trusting big business. Just like literally, um, the fast and manufactured food industry, they don't care about you. Just like the tobacco industry, they don't care about you. They're making money off of your life and death. It's that easy. So simple, fresh, healthy food. Go to a farmer's market, support a local farmer. Try to grow your own stuff if you can. Um, you know, I when my parents died, it changed me forever. Again, I was their caregiver. And up until that point, like I didn't really focus on death that much. I mean, in my family, pretty much everybody lives until their late 90s, mid to late 90s. I'm the only one who has had 2 cancers so far. And it's interesting now, and now I'm noticing more the people who passed away. And I was just looking at Jack Lemmon, who um, I was an actor I adored. And it's amazing the generation before me, most of them died in their 60s and 70s. I'm 64 because they were such heavy smokers. They were the vast majority of them smoked a massive amount of cigarettes because they were told in the 50s that smoking was safe. And there were TV commercials saying they were safe. There were doctors saying they were safe when the company knew they were not safe. The company knew they caused addiction. My dad called it cancer sticks. We knew back in the 30s not to smoke. They were cancer sticks. So I think a fundamental flaw that we all have to address now is we have to stop following marketing trend and get back to the basics. Are you sleeping well? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you managing your stress? And that's what I'm trying to do now. I am um cleaning everything up physically, mentally, and emotionally. I haven't had a fast I haven't had a McDonald's burger in since my 20s, but I have had Subway turkey sandwiches. I'm just trying to make better choices, and I'm trying to help my body. I'm trying to build a good foundation so that I don't have to worry about my future, that I will be strong and healthy up until my 90s. Hey, listen, my dad was 100 and he was going up and down the stairs all the time. That's my goal. And he never smoked. And I cooked their food and they ate well. Anyway, so Janelle, that's like all I can do is just say, get off of the internet, get away from the computer, get away from the TV, get up and walk, eat better, sleep better, and be with people that bring you joy. And don't let anybody online upset you. I mean, that's the other thing that our big challenge right now is that the internet has become so incredibly hostile, and of course, we have to remember that they make money by keeping you upset. The longer you use their service, their social networking platform, the more ad money they make. So they already know that to keep you engaged is to keep you upset, which is why they keep feeding you trauma. Lots and lots of trauma. Lots and lots of political stuff. Lots and lots of the left hating the right and the right hating left. And it's like, I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of it. It's not healthy. I'm not engaging anymore. Like I'm watching comedies. I'm watching mysteries. I just my spirit needs to be clean for a while. Sue says, okay. Sue says, I just take the magnesium that worked, which is usually 2, but everyone's different on the recommended daily amount and the dosage on the bottle too. Denise said, you were doing well, no pain, went for a pretty long walk yesterday, and today my lower pelvic area, it's achy. I do all the right things, did physical therapy, use hormone cream, doesn't affect my bladder, just feels achy. Can walking do that? Well, yeah, sure. If you stress, I mean, my friend, speaking as a woman who once used to be an elite athlete, getting old sucks. In my heyday, my workout was I would swim a couple miles, I would then do 100 flights of stairs on the Stairmaster, and then I would row 4 or 5 miles. That was my workout every day for a decade or 5 days a week. Loved it. I loved I loved Stairmaster. I loved running up mountains and hills. And my brain still wants me to do that, but, in my 40s, I started trying to do that, and I would have a lot more aches and pains. And I'd be very, very frustrated, and I talked to the trainer, "What's happening?" And they're like, "Jill, you're getting older. Your muscles are not as strong as they used to be." And then in my 50s, it was just like, "Okay, we're gonna switch from strength training to resistance training," and it's like, "Okay." But I still kept hurting myself randomly, and I never knew why. And now that I'm in my 60s, it's like, God bless America. Got up, walked down the hallway barefoot, my right foot started hurting. It's like, what? I didn't even walk yesterday. So, just understand that, as we get older, our muscles change with time. And there's a very and then we have wear and tear injuries and things like that. And so we have to adapt as we get older. And we're going to have to change things up. And so it may be that your walk yesterday might have been a little too long, or it may be that you need a new pair of shoes. Your body just may need more padding. The shoes to get, my friend, are Hoka's. Hoka Bondis. Oh my God. And they just released a new Bondi 9. These are my Hokas. Here, I think you have to see the other side. Hoka Bondis have been rated the best walking shoe on the market today. They are expensive. They're like $170, but they will last for years. Before I have no fat pads on the bottom of my feet from all the Stairmaster I did. I have no fat pads. And I went through a period of time in my 50s where I couldn't walk a quarter mile without foot pain. And I was Scottish dancing too, and oh, that hurt so bad. Um, I can walk miles in my Hokas. I These are the only shoes I wear now, Hokas. I wish, like, seriously, if I were getting married, I would have white Hokas on underneath. There are no high heels left for this girl. Nope. Sue said, "My physical therapist told me when going to the bathroom not to hold your breath because people tend to bear down and to breathe properly, which is more productive and safer for the pelvic floor." No doctor ever told me that. I hadn't really ever thought about how do you breathe when you're having a bowel movement. Fascinating. Sue said, "Glass bottled water is so expensive also, and no, I can't carry heavy glass bottles. Yikes." Denise, I pray. That's what I hope for. Diane says, "Is it common to get stones on a previous fulguration for Hunner's lesion?" It could, yeah. So bladder stones are interesting. Let me get a picture. I have a picture of them. Well, let's see. Where's my file with my pictures? Here we go. Is this it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was filing yesterday. I had to file all the loose papers in my office and move things around. Okay, so let's look at a bladder stone. This is a real picture from a real client and actually a good friend of mine. Look at that, my friends. Is that just like the craziest thing you've ever seen? It looks like coral. A bladder stone is a hard mineral deposit, kind like a kidney stone. So, when you have a kidney stone, it passes down the ureters into the bladder through, and then you pee it out, and it's agonizingly painful. Well, for some unlucky patients, bladder stones can actually emerge from the bladder wall. And these are not necessarily little stones, these can be big stones. So this is a friend of mine who, not an IC patient, although he originally reached out to me because they thought he had IC. It turned out that he was a surgical injury patient. That he had a doctor do a prostate surgery that was botched, and that surgery left him with gangrene in a seminal vesicle. So he had this terrible pain in this one location in his prostate. multiple surgeries, try to figure out where the hell this pain was. They finally found it that a seminal vesicle was gangrenous. So they removed it. Well, unfortunately, in one of those surgeries, they left a bleeder. They didn't cauterize everything. So he had the surgery, they sent him home. His bladder filled up with blood and blood clots. And they were so big he couldn't pee them out. So it became this very, very severe injury. He had an active bleeder. Again, not an IC patient. This is a surgical injury patient. We're talking about why do bladder stones develop. They get him back to the hospital that night. They take him right into the OR. They cut him open. And literally, as they cut him open, his bladder split in two. Like it was that full of blood clots. It just. So they clean it out and they sewed it back together. Two pieces of his bladder back together. And this happened along the incision where they re-sewed his bladder together. He had a catastrophic bladder injury. So why do bladder stones occur? They occur after injuries when a calcium metabolism process is disrupted. The skin cannot process calcium normally, therefore the calcium just comes right out of the skin in the form of a stone. And so he had to have surgery a couple of times to go in and remove the stones because they kept getting stuck in his urethra. And now they don't happen anymore because everything's healed. So Diane, getting back to your question here, is it common to get stones in a previous fulguration? I have never, up until this point, with your question, had a patient report that they got bladder stones after a fulguration. But it makes sense to me. If there are multiple fulgurations in the same area, and let's just say the last fulguration was particularly aggressive, I think that could create the foundation for stones to develop, hon. I do. And so just know that eventually as that skin heals, the stones should go away. But while you have them, they got to deal with them. Lori says, my son was in college and had to do a class experiment. He took meat from fast food and let it sit. None of it never molded. So many preservatives, and Subway was one of them. Yeah. I was just watching somebody who like found a loaf of Wonder Bread that was like 2 years old in a shelf, and they opened it. It looked fine. That's just not normal. That's scary. I do not want to put that in my body, that's for sure. Denise says she has Hokas. Yes. I think it was because I walked uphill. I'm very active. Weird how it made my pelvic area achy. Yeah, you just might have pushed it a little bit too much. My last walk, where I was walking uphill, I was talking with the patient at the same time, and I definitely messed things up. My heart started racing. Yikes, that was not fun. Sue said, does that brand only make tennis shoes or do they make casual sandals and walking boots? Yeah, they make sandals and they make hiking boots. Definitely. But go to hoka.com, HOKA.com. And what I really love about Hoka's is that like they just released the Bondi 9, which is the ninth version. I'm wearing Bondi 8s. What you'll see over a year is they just issue all sorts of different colors and colors on colors. And I love that. Like I just love playing with color because I wear them every day. Anne says, me neither. High heels. Sherry says, "I get my Hokas from eBay, much cheaper deals, maybe overstocks, irregulars, and used." By the way, I have to say, I have a pair of black Hokas that are barely worn that just don't feel right on my feet. Size 9. Hold on. Here they are. Look, barely worn. I don't know. I don't know what it is about these that I don't know. They just don't quite feel as good as they would normally. So, if anybody's interested in a pair of Hoka size 9, I'll give you a good deal on them. Hi, Deborah. Denise said, I ordered Lactoferrin, thought I'd try it, haven't gotten it yet. Excellent. Excellent. So we had, I think I told you last week, we have another really, really good success story with Lactoferrin. A woman with very, very severe Hunner's ulcers, in terrible shape, not responding to therapy, was in a very, very, very dark place, considering flying to Europe to end her life. And she either found the blog on our website or watched one of these meetings, and she thought, you know what? I'm going to try it. She's 70% better. She called and she said, I can't believe it. Like, I was getting ready. I was so sick of living with Hunner's lesions for so long. And I'm genuinely better. And I'm calling to tell you that you saved my life. True story. True story. So, lactoferrin is a protein found in milk. It is an essential part of our immune system. Lactoferrin is the dominant protein found in colostrum. In adults, lactoferrin has been tested extensively for a wide variety of medical conditions. A research team in Italy 2 years ago found that giving women with recurring UTIs, E. coli infections, lactoferrin dramatically improved their body's ability to fight that infection. Last summer, they produced an IC study that was nothing short of remarkable. That 31 patients in the study, they tested not only their symptoms, they looked at their bladders before and after treatment, and they measured inflammation throughout their body through blood testing before and after treatment. 28 out of 31 after 4 months had no IC symptoms. Their inflammatory markers had dramatically improved. And most importantly, their red inflamed bladders had become pink and healthy. This is the first supplement where we have a study showing that it can be helpful with Hunner's lesions, but also helpful for patient without Hunner's lesions. So that's the new thing happening right now. It's a little cold here. I had to turn my little heater on. So you can get the lactoferrin in the IC Network shop. I chose to, so that study crossed my desk a week after I had my breast removed for breast cancer. And so since I was heavily medicated, I sat on it for a couple months and waited until I was better and was present completely. And then dove into the research, and the research is fabulous. No side effects in that. This is not a synthetic chemical. This is not a synthetic treatment. It literally is a protein out of milk. So the safety profile is exceptional. And so for those patients who are just not responding to therapy, I say, what do you have to lose? I mean, we've got a good study. We've got a very good study showing some success, and patient successes are starting to trickle in. And we've only been talking about it for a couple months now. Irene emailed me. She said, "How much for the Hokas for these?" Well, they cost me 100, like 150 2 years ago. 50? I'll send them to you for 50. Anne says, "Doesn't do Hunner's lesions get removed with a cystoscopy?" Hunner's lesions, no, they get lasered. They will laser them closed because it's an open wound. Think about having a bloody nose. If you ever have a super bloody nose, what do? They cauterize it to seal it. Well, that's what they do to Hunner's lesions, is they cauterize it to seal it. And so, but the problem is that the lesions often come back. But now we have a better idea of why they come back, because now we know that viral infections are often the underlying cause of Hunner's lesions. We have found the Epstein-Barr virus, the polyoma BK virus, the polyoma JC virus in the urine of patients with lesions. And now that we know to ask that question, more and more patients patients with Hunner's lesions are reporting that they do have a history of mononucleosis. And the thing is once you have a viral infection, you have a viral infection. It is what it is. Um, so anyway, we don't know enough about what viruses do when they're passive. So, for example, I have oral herpes. I mean, I've had it since I was a kid. Like 70% of the population has it. It means that somebody with herpes kissed you when you were a baby and they gave it to you. So if you get cold sores, that's herpes. And the cold sore might last a week, less if you use lysine, which is why I always suggest lysine. Um, but it goes back into remission. So it's still there. It's still living in the nerves in your mouth, but it's waiting for um, uh, uh, stress. Usually it's periods of very, very intense stress that will make a cold sore develop again. So it's there. So we know that polyoma BK virus is something pretty much we all have. It's a normal part of the biome. It normally stays quiet unless you become immune compromised. If you become immune compromised, it turns on in the bladder wall and you get a viral infection of your bladder. This is why when you think UTI, don't just think about um, bacteria. We have to think about fungus and virus. And God, I was working with a patient last week. What was that? What did she have? She had this weird fungal infection in her bladder that they found. And that's why this next generation DNA urine testing is so important. Susan said, "Has anybody heard of Cystomend?" Honey, we launched Cystomend. Cystomend is made by the same company that makes Bladder Builder and Bladder Rest. Um, uh, we have it in the IC Network store. We are, they are pretty much the manufacturer's out and we're out. They might have a tiny bit left on Cystomen because I just placed an order for some. and I think they're a month away from production, something like that. So it might be better since we don't know when we're going to get it in. Hopefully, in a month to 6 weeks. I think I would be very tempted instead to try Bladder Builder because Bladder Builder is, in my opinion, the best supplement on the market. And the reason why I consider it the best supplement is because it has the most logical mechanisms of action depending upon your phenotype. So if you are okay, so again, remember that we have distinct groups in the patient population. Yeah, yes, we send it to Amazon to sell it, and the company sends it to Amazon to sell it. We sell Bladder Builder on Amazon. The IC Network does. We sell Bladder Rest. We sell Peora on Amazon. We all sell on Amazon, even though it's a small business killer. We don't have a choice. We kind of have to do that. So, um, anyway, so the question that people ask is, well, what's the right supplement for me? And my answer is always going to be, well, what's your phenotype? Because we don't want you to waste your time and money doing something that has no chance of helping. So this is where we go back and we look at your phenotypes. So phenotype 1 is Hunner's lesions. If you have Hunner's lesions, Hunner's ulcers, then we want to do lactoferrin. That's the one that makes absolutely the most sense for somebody with Hunner's lesion or any severe bladder wall inflammation. If you are an estrogen atrophy patient, then you're going to want to do something that has chondroitin in it because chondroitin helps to coat the bladder wall. So that's Bladder Rest, that's Bladder Builder, Cystoprotect, or Cystomend. I think that Bladder Builder is our best supplement. Cystomend is kind of like, it's like the super strong formula. It has more of many ingredients in it, but so many of us are a little bit more sensitive. I think it's a very robust supplement. Um, the Bladder Builder just it just makes more sense to me. I prefer that formula. So again, if you've got estrogen atrophy, where we're going to try to coat the bladder wall, we're going to do something chondroitin based. If you've got pelvic floor driven, then you don't really need to be doing a lot of bladder wall stuff. You need to be putting that money into physical therapy. If you've got pudendal neuralgia, again, your money is on is going to be on physical therapy and then things that calm nerves down, like palmitoyl ethanolamide, which Denise just asked about. I rave about PEA. PEA is fantastic. It's what I take. So if we're dealing with widespread pain or pudendal neuralgia, or if you've got a lot of just extraneous frequency urgency, our goal here is to calm nerves down because it's the nerves that are driving your symptoms. Listen, if you've got a healthy bladder, they look at your bladder under cystoscope, and your bladder looks normal. Good. That's great. Then you don't need to be doing bladder supplements. You need to be doing things that will calm nerves and muscles down instead. And so that's where Peora, the palmitoyl ethanolamide, makes total sense. PEA has completely changed my life for the better. I'm thrilled with it. And the IC study that came out in 2019 showed that 87% of patients who did PEA got better. And so I took that Italian study again to Natural Approach Nutrition and said, can you make us an American version of this? And that's Peora in the IC Network shop. And so the doctors who were at the conference, the American Urology Association conference, who saw the research were ecstatic because they could finally suggest something for pain that was not an opiate and did not carry the risk of overdose. And so for anybody that's struggling with pain, PEA, worth a shot. Outstanding safety profile. No known drug interactions. And so again, if you're in the widespread pain, if you're in the pudendal neuralgia where you got to calm nerves down, or you're just struggling with pain or maybe extraneous frequency urgency, but you got a healthy bladder wall, give the PEA a try or the Bladder Builder a try. And remember, listen, it's not my job to give you medical advice. My job is to educate you and inform you. My job, especially now, is to help you understand why so many patients failed treatment. Because for decades, we gave patients Elmeron, we gave patients antidepressants and antihistamines, and most didn't get better. Why? Why didn't they get better? Because for most of us, IC has nothing to do with a bladder disease. IC is a neuromuscular issue. It's a neuromuscular pelvic pain syndrome for which the new name we're calling it is myofascial frequency urgency syndrome. Susan, do we sell Bladder Builder? We absolutely do. Bladder Builder, I actually contributed to the formula Bladder Builder. I'm the one who said, please add PEA to it. Bladder Builder was the first bladder supplement that added PEA. And our 1-year follow-up study was outstanding. Elaine says, question, vanilla bean extract contains ethyl alcohol. Is this a concern ingredient for IC? I know alcohol is a no. See, the thing, honey, is that the alcohol in an extract is going to gas off when you cook it. And so don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about it at all. Susan, if you go to our website, you can see it right on the back here, icnetwork.org, icnetwork.org, and just click on the shop link or the store link, and it'll take you right over to the store, and you'll see it right on the front cover. And I'm not sure how much Bladder Builder, the production runs have all been delayed like a month. Things are kind of crazy right now. Let me just look and see what I have. And we send it to Amazon. So if you buy it from Amazon, you're buying it from us too. But it's better to buy it from us because here's the secret, guys. You know how you get free shipping on Amazon? Yeah, it's not really free. I pay for it. All that free shipping the customer gets billed back to the business. And then Amazon takes another big chunk. So it's really better to order it. If you find these meetings helpful and you want to support the IC network, it's better to order it from us. Oh yeah, I got plenty, hun. I've got plenty. And also we have volume discounts. If you buy 2 to 3, you get 5% off. If you buy 4 to 5, you get 10% off. You buy 6 or more, you get 15% off. And right now we're having a 50% off shipping promo. Ship 50 is our promo code. You get to get 50% off of your shipping. All right. I feel like I missed something. Julie says, I have Hunner's lesions. How much Lactoferrin should I take? It's a 250 milligram what I bought. Okay, so the Lactoferrin IC study did 1,000 milligrams a day for 7 days, 400 milligrams a day for 2 weeks, and 200 milligrams a day for 2 months. So you could adapt your 250 milligram capsule to that. 1,000 milligrams a day for the first 7 days, 400 milligrams a day for 2 weeks afterward, and 200 milligrams a day for 2 months afterward. By the way, you know how I was talking earlier about just trying to clean up my physical, mental, and emotional health and really being careful about what. Really? Let me look. Somebody said the Ship 50 promo had expired. I extended it to January 31st. Hold on. All right, marketing, promotions. Ship 50. No, It says it's active through June 30th of 2025. Um, Lori, if you have any issues, just you can call me tomorrow or call my team tomorrow, and they'll just take it over the phone. Take your order over the phone. But I'm looking at it here, and it's definitely on. Yeah, it's definitely on. So, okay. So, yeah, try it again and let me know. Technology is annoying. Anne says, so if you have atrophy and use estrogen, do you still need chondroitin? You might, because listen, estrogen, you're never going to have a 20-year-old bladder again. You're never going to have a 20-year-old bladder. You have a 50-year-old bladder that, the estrogen's helping a little bit. But if you're still symptomatic, doing something that will coat your bladder makes a little bit of sense. And so, yeah, you might benefit if there's room for improvement and you're still struggling, then you might benefit from trying a chondroitin-based supplement. Okay, so what I was saying is like I'm really just trying to clean everything up. I'm trying to be gentle to my body and soul. And I'm careful with what I'm looking at and what I'm listening to and all that sort of stuff. So the other night, I made the mistake of watching Squid Games. Squid Games is that Korean series that won a bunch of awards, but it's basically it's like 400 people or 500 people who all need money, and they end up getting duped into participating in this really gruesome contest where if you make a mistake, they shoot you, right? And it's like part of it's like really campy, and then the other part of it is just like really appalling. The violence is really appalling, and then you got the mystery of who's doing this and why and how are they getting away with it and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, don't watch the Squid Games before you go to bed. Just don't. I mean, I'm not a horror person. I don't like horror. I don't know why I watched it. I regretted it. I did not sleep well that night. Denise says, ugh, Squid Games. Yeah. Uh, so I say as long as you have questions. Sometimes we do 5-hour meetings. Sometimes we do 1-hour meetings. Right now we're going on 2 hours. You're slowing down with your questions. I always make this offer. If anybody wants to go into Zoom, we can transition over to Zoom if you'd like to have a conversation with me. Otherwise, if y'all are going back to football, that's fine. I will be here next week. Knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood. We are, for those of you who were following us last week with the fires, we are entering another major fire event tomorrow. High winds again. So say some prayers for Southern California. We've all been talking about this because talk about stress and messing. Can you imagine being an IC patient and being told literally in 10 minutes, pack up everything you need, you've got to go? What do you take with you? You bring your meds, you're going to bring your heating pad, you're going to bring your valuables, money, bank account, car keys, again, medications. Some people have to evacuate with the clothes on their back. We had literally had people running through the street in their nightgowns and their slippers as their home burned behind them. They had nothing, including the president of our local hospital. That happened to her a couple of years ago. And then imagine learning that you have lost your home. And so now you have to find a place to live. There are 17,000 homes that burned. Where do they go? And the thing is that it's a homeowner's market in the sense that if you have a home to rent, before the fire you might have charged 2,000 a month. Now you can charge 5,000 a month. The price gouging that's happening is stunning. And we're getting more and more reports now of people who, one man was caring for his elderly parents in their condo. Condo was paid off, but they couldn't afford fire insurance. Their fire insurance got canceled, and they couldn't afford um, any other insurance if it was even offered. And so now their home burned and they have no insurance. They have nothing. Where are they going to go? It's just such a heartbreaking moment in time. And it's no different for hurricanes. It's no different for earthquakes. It's no different for war. I hope that we can all, and again, as you get older, when you're younger, you just kind of disconnect away from this. When you're older, you get the reality of this. This is like, I mean, now, like I'm taking out everything touching my house. Everything. I've got a tree next to the house, I've got three Japanese maples. I'm taking them all out and I'm putting rock down. And yet the problem is across the street, I've got a neighbor who has a yard full of junipers and they burn like hell. So if that catches fire, I'm losing my house. That's all there is to it. The house is done. It's over. So where am I going to go as a single woman with limited money? Scary as hell. I would go to my sister's house. Life. Okay, we have to talk about happy things. So on my table is our magazine. So the next project on the IC network is going to be our IC Optimist magazine. We'll be putting the new food list in the. Wendy says, "Come to your house." Thank you, honey. Well, you never know. You never know. If that happens and all I have is a cell phone, I will come online and say, "Is there anybody that has a spare room for Jill Osborne?" Wendy said, "Southern Georgia." Hey, girl, you never know. You never know. You just never know. I think that was one of the things that really impressed me about my parents because, my parents didn't let things bother them. Here I created this big earthquake kit. You have an entire upstairs. That's very appealing, Wendy. Thank you. Um, I have a big earthquake kit out on our deck that has water filters in it and camp food in it and everything, batteries, everything in that. My dad was, until COVID, my dad was like, "Why are you doing that?" And it's just like, I'm trying to be prepared. That's all. I've got two elderly people to care for. I need to be prepared. And then COVID hit. And what was really amazing about my dad with COVID, and Susan says, "Come to North Carolina. You're all see." Okay, I got to tell you right now. You know what one of my dreams has been completely and totally. So a couple of things that I would do if I won the lotto. Number 1, I would start a research foundation for IC for sure. Number 2, I would love to find an apartment complex that I could buy, that I could convert to help people with IC and pelvic pain, especially if you're alone and you don't have family. Because you're my family. We are family. And I want to play board games with you. I want to have happy hour with you. IC friendly happy hour. I want to celebrate birthdays with you. I don't like living alone at all. Denise says she lives in Massachusetts. It's going to snow soon. Yikes. It's the one thing I know. I just need sunshine. It will, I could never live in Seattle. I need sunshine. Doesn't have to be warm. I just need light. So South Georgia, Wendy, you never know. So if I put out the call, and we'll have to do a GoFundMe because right now we don't have the fire insurance is half of the coverage for twice the price. So I have the California Fair Plan because State Farm is not a good neighbor. State Farm canceled our home insurance after 40 years of home insurance. Not a good neighbor. State Farm, not a good neighbor. Urgh. So now I have half the coverage for twice the price, and I will not have it. And the irony is that they will not cover anything older than 25 years old. So if my roof was 24 years, 10 months old, so it is covered, and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the roof. My plumbing is the original plumbing, not covered. Wendy said, yes, you will never use them again. Yeah. Susan said, we would have a great time. I was recently divorced back in November. I'm by myself, North Carolina, close. See, the other big fantasy that I had, I would just, and you're 67, I'm 64. See, from day one, when I started the IC network, I wanted to get a bus and have on the side of the bus, got IC? Ask me. And I just wanted to drive across the country and go to support group meeting. But now we don't have all the support groups are gone now. So we only have the online support group meeting. But like I have like real genuine lotto fantasies here. I do. I do. But I just, you know, having chronic pain. Debbie says she'd jump on the bus. God, wouldn't we have a great time? Like seriously, we would. We really would have a blast together. I am sure. I am sure of it. I feel like so um when you've struggled with a medical condition that's limited your life. Because remember, my symptoms started when I was a kid, right? Um, you, how do I want to say this? I was actually talking to my therapist about it this week. Like it controls you until you control it. But I'm not saying it well. Oh God, what language should I use in that conversation? I am loving therapy right now. I am loving it. You know what I ended up saying when we ended up our conversation, because I'm working on trauma, trying to let go of past trauma. And I said to her, I said, "My soul feels like a torn and battered patchwork quilt." And yet something and I could see it in my brain. I could see one square dedicated to the guy who attacked me. I could see one square dedicated to another painful event. It was just like a really great way of looking at past trauma. And we're talking about how trauma um, influences our lives years and years later. It's like a blanket you wear, you know? That's a good way to think about it. It's a beautiful quilt, but there are portions of the quilt that are very painful. There are portions of the quilt that we don't need anymore. And, I kind of came to this moment in time where I went, Jill, you know how to make quilts. You can make a new quilt. Cut out the bad section, let it go, tear it up, throw it away. I don't ever need to think about the guy who hurt me. He's done. He's in the trash can. And it was just like mind blowing to me to really think about trauma in that way. That a piece of my blanket is dedicated to this very specific trauma event. I can cut it out and sew a new one. Debbie says here the pieces that are tethered make you stronger. And I can go along the seams and I can cut it out and let it go. I never thought of trauma that way. And it was really like I feel lighter. I told her that once we started talking about because I'm just I don't want to live the rest of my life afraid. I've spent a lot of my life afraid because I got attacked by a rapist and murderer when I was a kid. And so I was never comfortable going away by myself. I was never comfortable driving a long distance by myself. I went to Europe. I went to Hawaii. I went to Europe with my mom. I went to Hawaii with my family. I kept thinking about coming home because my brain, that's a trauma response. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. You're safe at home. But, listen, I got 20, 25 years left in my life, maybe 30. I don't want to live my life feeling this way. I'm ready to do more things. And I'm being very purposeful and very deliberate in working with a therapist to finally try to process old trauma. And it's working. And it feels good. I cry. There are moments when I cry, and that's okay. Crying is good. Crying is healthy. All right. Susan says, I go back to see Dr. Evans in April. He put the saxonic interstim in me in December 10th. I already turned it off. Seemed like it was aggravating my bladder even worse. Now is he going to be mad at you? No, honey, he's not going to be mad at you. That's very common. The thing with Dr. Evans is he doesn't let you talk. He interrupts you when you're trying to explain what you're going through. They all do because their timing is so quick. I do that too when people call me. Because I know I have a limited period of time and I'm just trying to get it all out. But honey, he's very compassionate. You just need to say, Dr. Evans, listen, I had to turn it off. It made me worse. Can we figure out why? Maybe it needs to be reprogrammed. He listen, all the doctors who do the implants, this is a perfectly normal conversation to have with them. You don't need to be afraid. He's not going to be mad at you at all. This is completely normal, okay? So don't worry about that. He's a good guy. Hey Ava. Hello Ava on YouTube. Sorry I missed that, honey. She said just feeling sick today. I'm sorry. Are you having a flare? And she's from St. Louis. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, girl. Hi, Diane. I missed you too. We're slowing down, hun. It's towards the end of the meeting, and people are going back to football. Debbie said, I had Interstim in December, battery faulty, had to do another pocket, new battery. Yeah. Well, and now again that we're phenotyping, the role of Interstim is changing. The role of neuromodulation is changing. The neuromodulation makes the most sense with somebody with frequency urgency syndrome, where their symptoms are being driven by a funky nervous system. Debbie says, any more pockets and I'll be a pool table. Ah, yikes, girl. Well, hopefully you're done. But I still think you need to be phenotyped to make sure that they haven't missed anything else that could be driving some of your symptoms, like your pelvic floor. Let's make sure your pelvic floor is in good shape. Make sure your nervous system is in good shape too. Ava, you came in just as we're kind of finishing up, hun. We've been going now for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I know, Debbie. It is sad. It's very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. Did I miss anything else? So anyway, trauma work. As for those of us with widespread pain, where we know that widespread pain in that injured nervous system is often driven by trauma, especially in childhood, physical trauma or emotional trauma, there's just no shame at all because, we don't look at this as mental illness, guys, at all. This is a trauma response. This is what the brain does when you've been traumatized. And now that we're looking at it within the context of a trauma response, and we understand why patients with widespread pain have anxiety disorder, and we understand now why it's so important that we work on that anxiety disorder, because anxiety amplifies pain. And so having a good anxiety management class under your belt could be really life changing if you've got widespread pain. Working on any past trauma, nothing wrong with that. Good. It's good to do. But nobody's saying that this is mental illness. Nobody's saying that this is all in your head. This is a physiological response to trauma. And now we have to undo that damage physically, and emotionally. Debbie says, I have a cystocele and rectocele, but doctor says a pessary would do more harm than good. Well, Debbie, so cystoceles and rectoceles occur when muscles get very weak and things start to fall out. Things start to fall out of position and sometimes out of your body. There is early versus later. If it's very mild, a mild weakening of the muscles, then doing physical therapy could help tremendously. But if the muscles continue to weaken, then you end up at the moderate stage where physical therapy, the muscles are basically stretched out and physical therapy won't fix it. And that's the point where we would be looking at a pessary. A pessary is a device that we put into the vagina that kind of holds everything in place. But then there comes a point when even the pessary doesn't work. And that's when our option is surgery. In fact, I have a good friend who she originally had surgery. It didn't. It failed. She now has a new rectocele and cystocele, and she's having surgery and a hysterectomy next month. actually. So he says a pessary would flare the IC. It's moderate. It could because it's a hard knob down there. It's and it comes in different shapes and sizes and effects. Um, but let me tell you the story of one of the patients that I worked with for many, many years. She was an elderly woman. Not well. She was. I think when I first met her, she was in her 60s, and I was in my 30s. Okay, so dear God. Anyway, she had incontinence and a prolapse. And she didn't want to do the surgery, so she opted for physical therapy. Eventually, it didn't work. She got older, and then finally, by the time she was like 75, she was into fairly big time pessaries. And the doctors kept saying, "Honey, we can fix this surgically." And she kept saying, "I don't want surgery. I don't want surgery." Well, listen, by the time she was in her 80s, she waited way too long. And now she had a very large, uncomfortable pessary that she couldn't put in or take out. She had to go to the urologist every 6 weeks for them to take it out and clean it and put it back inside of her. And it was disgusting. And she has since passed away from old age. The last 4 or 5 years that I worked with her and I talked to her regularly, her biggest regret was not having the surgery when she was younger. She waited too long, and by the time she was in her 80s, she wasn't a candidate for that surgery, and I'm God's honest truth. Every conversation I had with her, it was regret that she didn't get it taken care of. And that's one of the reasons why I opted for a double mastectomy. Even though I only had breast cancer in one breast, I said, "Take them both," because right now I'm 64 and strong. I didn't wanna wait until I was 75 because it's well known for breast cancer to appear in the other breast, like, years later. It's like, "You know what? Take them both now while I'm young and strong." So, there just kinda comes a point in time where those muscles just are unrepairable other than surgery, and so I would just encourage you to have really good discussions with your urologist about the different types of pessary, the care of pessaries, the long-term trajectory of patients who use pessaries. What can you do while you're using a pessary to work on your muscles, to keep your muscles as healthy as you can, etc. You've done physical therapy for 8 months. Have your muscles responded? Like, do you feel like you have a positive response? Are your muscles stronger, or have they stayed fairly weak? Hi, Ava. I see you, honey. Do you have any questions about IC we can help you with? So Debbie says here the bladder has dropped even further. Okay, so that's a telling sign. Have you had a history? You had a hysterectomy 30 years ago. So has the doctor explored surgical options with you? Yeah, I had a hysterectomy 7 years ago. I mean, is your doctor saying the only treatment is a pessary, or are they offering to tack up your bladder again? How old are you, hun? It was so weird. As soon as I said I had a hysterectomy, I felt a little pulling sensation down there. He just said no pessary because it would cause too much pain. You're 62, so you're younger than me. Well, you know, yeah, very healthy and fit. I mean, I consider myself pretty healthy and fit too. So how is he proposing to treat it? I mean, your case 15 years ago, they would have done a bladder lift with mesh. But now we aren't using mesh. We know that mesh creates a whole nother issue, but a whole very serious complications. So we have to be very careful with mesh bladder suspension surgeries. But they can use your own tissue. And Debbie said, "I don't know." I said, "I'm going to talk to Jill." so so it may surprise you to know that. So you say you're very healthy and fit. Are you a runner? How do you stay fit? What's your sport? It may surprise you to learn that a lot of elite athletes, runners, triathletes, have to compete with pessaries because the running messes with their pelvic floor. So literally, you'll see a 24-year-old Olympic athlete. You have no idea. She's actually running with a pessary because her workouts have so badly damaged the pelvic floor. You run every day. Ooh. Well, lift and lots of Zumba. There's a great website, pelvicpainrehab.com. Pelvicpainrehab.com. That's the Pelvic Health and Rehabilitation Center. And I think that they're one of the best physical therapy pelvic floor experts in the world. Stephanie Prendergast and Elizabeth Rummer are the founders. Their website has an outstanding blog. I read it. I read everything that comes out. And I think it would be interesting to see if they have a section on here. Hold on a sec. If there's anybody I would trust implicitly in writing articles about how to recover from a rectocele when you're a runner, it would be them. Let's see if you know what? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send Stephanie an email right now. She's on my email list. She's a friend. Um, Let me see if I can find her in my email. Okay, hold on. I gotta find her on my other computer. Whoops. I don't know if doing the weightlifting is. I mean, honey, see, we're twins in a sense because we're both very very good athletes when we were younger, but we now have 6-year-old bodies. And the muscles of a 6-year-old are very different than a muscle of a 30-year-old. And there comes a point in time where we develop wear and tear injury. I don't know if Zumba is the right thing for you to be doing with a rectocele or a cystocele. I'd love to. I would love to find a. Hold on. An expert who could guide us on this. So people with rectocele should avoid high-impact Zumba moves that involve repeated jumping, hopping, or skipping. These moves will worsen prolapse symptoms. High-impact exercises weaken the pelvic floor muscles and increase the risk of urine leakage. I'm gonna try to get an answer on this. I'll try to get it on our website. Um, the one thing you should never do if you have a pelvic organ prolapse. Oh, it's just stupid. Okay. Well, we need a little bit more info. First my coffee, now my Zumba. Yeah, but girl, here's the issue, man. You're postmenopausal. You don't have the estrogen. You don't have the mucus in your bladder like you used to. So you are a genitourinary syndrome of menopause patient just based upon your age. So of course that one cup of coffee that you might have enjoyed drinking every day might become a problem. And that's, again, not a disease. That's just that happens to some of us as we get older. I mean, genetics are at play, ancestry is at play, but genitourinary syndrome of menopause is real. Um, I think that the challenge that we have is that you run I did Stairmaster because it's how we manage our stress. It's what feels good. It just feels good. It becomes a daily part of our routine, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to be an athlete. And we like the endorphins. But right now, you have a big time injury. You have a big injury. And you have an injury that's progressing. And so if you want to be able to run again, granted, running slower, wearing better shoes like Hoka shoes, things like that. I s- and the fact that you're getting worse, I mean, I would be having a discussion about surgery if I were in your shoes. Debbie wears Hokas. Yeah, we love our Hokas, baby. We love our Hokas. It's the only shoes I buy. The only shoes I buy. I love them. And I love colors. My favorite ones are my light blue ones, light blue with yellow soles. But I like these gray ones with pink soles too. That's why you said I'll talk to Jill. I mean, if you were younger, I would be diving into PT, but girl, your PT is not working, and you've had a so it's not a hysterectomy. You've already had that done. It's really just trying to reposition your bladder. And, Debbie says no bowl are great sneakers as well. Okay, haven't heard of them. Um, I mean, my goal is I want to be an athlete for the rest of my life. Right now, I can't because I'm recovering from massive surgery and I can't lift weights. I don't have my fascia anymore on my chest because I had the double mastectomy. So my body is all messed up right now. It's all messed up. And I want to have confidence in my body. And right now I don't have confidence in my body. The one thing I do know, and Debbie, I don't know how you feel about this, is that before COVID, I was at the gym almost every day. And I kept my membership at the gym for a couple years after COVID, even though I didn't go and it was closed. But I let my gym laps go or my gym membership go because I don't want to be exposed to COVID. I've already had it twice and it messed up my heart bad. Susan, you had a double mastectomy back in 2007? Girl, I was not prepared for how difficult this recovery would be. I have a breast cancer vlog on my YouTube channel where I actually show the incisions, and I just did my 6 month follow up, and everything is healed nicely, but the pain, it's like oh it's weird. It's not. It's just weird. Like I wear a. I can show you this. See this? I have to have a little compression over the incisions. If I don't have the compression, it's like gravity is pulling downward and it's very uncomfortable and it's still uncomfortable. Did you have that same thing, Susan? Or did you bounce back? Because I went flat. I didn't opt for reconstruction. I didn't want reconstruction. I've never, I just want to be able to live without wearing a bra for once in my life. Because I was 38, I was a 38D in seventh grade. Guys, you got to understand, my grandmother had watermelons hanging off of her chest when and the breast size in my Norwegian family was huge, and I was always locked down tight with the sports bra. 24 hours a day the last couple of years. They were so uncomfortable, and I was still a 38D. And so now I'm a 34A, and I'm happy with that size. I always wanted flat breasts, but Susan said it was horrible. Plastic surgeon, but you ended up going through the whole process of the implant over in Chapel Hill. Yikes! You ended up in the ICU for a week unconscious. Wow. See, that's one of the reasons why I didn't opt for implants. Is because when I started looking at the complications, uh, it's just like, nope, I don't need them. I don't need them. I didn't. I just. I've always wanted to be flat. I'm flat. Susan said she was supposed to have hers replaced in 2021. I haven't had them replaced yet. Well, you got other fish to fry. But in the same sense, I had one of our members She did what you did, and her implants kept leaking, and she started having issues with them, so she just told the doctor, "Just take them out. I don't need implants. I can be flat." And she said she never regretted that she feels younger, and I feel younger too. I mean, from the waist down, from my neck to my waist, I look like I did when I was 13. From the neck up, no. Oops. Francis said, "I'm coming in late, but I saw this comment. It's so funny. I've been wanting to invest in a pair. Do you like them?" Oh, wait. There you go. Oh, no. There's lots of blurring powder happening here. Lots of blurring powder. I have aged massively in the last 2 years, in the last 18 months. I like literally, I scare myself sometimes when I look in the mirror. No, the one thing I'm just really happy about now is that I didn't have to go through chemotherapy, so I still have my hair. I've had very short hair before. I had very, very short hair when I was playing professional tennis. I got butchered, so I know what it's like to live with short hair. But now my long hair is like my FU to the cancer world. It's like, yeah, bring it, baby. You're not touching my hair right now, at least. Um, Hold on a sec. I could actually show you a picture. I think I have a picture in here, my short hair. It's just hard to, like, it's always something, you know? I just want a year with no health problems. I want a year with no hospital visits. I want a year with no death. I will confess that I did take a picture of my breasts before I had my surgery. I see them right now. I had to have a picture to remind myself that I did once have breasts. But hold on a sec. I think I have somewhere in here. Oh, well. Where is it? High school or junior high. That's right around the time that my symptoms started. That's probably that look of betrayal on my face. Why, God? Why? Why did you do this to me? That's how I felt back then. Now I know it's injury and you didn't do anything to me. I just got hurt. Well, anyway. Um, Diane said, I've been taking lactoferrin and it's helping with my bladder pain frequency urgency. Yeah, baby. That's what I want to hear, Diane. My main issue is estrogen atrophy, and this has really helped the inflammation of my bladder. Yes, 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 yes. I also have pelvic floor and widespread pain. You should go back 20 years as issues. And I've helped within physical therapy. Thanks for steering me in the direction of lactoferrin. Oh, Diane, yes, yes, yes. I love it. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. Excellent. Thank you, Debbie. See the lactoferrin, it's just that's it. That's the biggest change. The PEA and the lactoferrin. Those are the two biggest things we've had. And that's just so that's Diane, I'm just so happy for you that you're feeling better. That is good. Spread the word. Just spread the word about the lactoferrin. Debbie says, I wish I knew about lactoferrin before I did the interstem. Yeah, exactly. Well, we're trying to help more people now. And guys, just so you know, there's a lot of lactoferrin on the market. Some of it's really cheap, some of it's very expensive. Ours is midway. Um, I chose not to bring in a lactoferrin from the United States because lactoferrin comes from milk cows, milk. And but our cow supply, we are having a terrible problem with bird flu, found not only in dairies, but found in the milk in grocery stores, especially raw milk. There was just a new warning that was issued like 2 weeks ago. We had our first fatality, I think, of a 16-year-old girl who got bird flu in the South. And so because I don't know enough about the harvesting of lactoferrin from milk products, I just said, I'm not comfortable bringing in a lactoferrin from the United States. And so the lactoferrin that we sell in our IT Network shop comes from Australia where there's no bird flu. I just didn't know enough to risk it. Bye, Debbie. Diane, that's great. Spread the word, my dear. Spread the word. Francis said, I had great success with Bladder Builder. What is the difference between Bladder Builder and Cysto Protect? I'm doing okay, but I think my estrogen patch and Intervosa has helped a lot. The biggest difference is PEA, hun. Cysto Protect does not have PEA in it, and PEA acts to calm nerves down. That's why Bladder Builder is a better overall supplement than Cysto Protect. You know, the Cysto Protect formula is an old formula. And we've learned so much more about IC since it was created. Most importantly, we're learning the role of muscles and the role of nerves. And so Cysto Protect by itself may be good for frequency urgency, but the Bladder Builder is with frequency urgency pain because it has the PEA in it. So I would definitely stay with the Bladder Builder. That's a no-brainer. All right, you guys on YouTube, you're being very quiet. Frances says she loves it and can't live without her Bladder Builder. Excellent. And so, Frances, just know that when you buy it from us, if you buy 2 or 3 bottles, it's 5% off. 4 to 5, 10% off. 6 or more, 15% off. And so we have a lot of people who buy a year's supply at one time just to save the money and time. So we can do that. Diane said, I do take Cystomen too, but it was helping some, but adding the lactoferrin with the PEA changed thing. Yeah, baby. I'm so excited for you. Thank you, guys. Thank you so, so much. All right, so I'm working on the magazine this week, and I'm probably going to make a new. So we have our new free diet list, but I'm going to probably put a new diet guide together, a diet special report. Francis says your next move is trying a wand. Good. What else am I doing? I'm very, very close to shutting down our forum. People don't come to forums anymore. And it's at least $2,000 a year to run. I hate to do it. We got over like 55,000 patients who have used it. If you guys want me to keep my forum, you got to use it. Otherwise, I'm just going to try to harvest as much data as I can and then probably let it go. I'm going to say something really bold right now, and that is I do not believe support groups online are effective anymore. um, because you can, Elaine, the forum on our website, the IC Network forum, which was the original social networking website for IC. It's a massive discussion area where you can go read questions and answers given by other patients. You can ask questions. And there's just 25 years of information in there. It's just a ginormous archive of IC information. Um, yeah, IC Network. If you just go to icnetwork.org, it's the first link under support. But again, our challenge is that people go to video now, which is why we have our video masterclass. Everybody wants video now. They don't want to read. They want to watch videos. So that's what I'm spending a lot of time now doing is I'm just trying to switch everything over to video as much as I can. Diane said, I also do PTNS and was thinking of InterStim, but now I'll just stay with PTNS. Yeah, I think that's a good idea right now. I mean, especially if the lactoferrin is helping. There's just no reason for you to do surgery. Okay, so anyway, the support forum's probably going to go in the next month. We'll see. I am going to do a lot more Kindles, like little 20-page Kindles for like 99 cents of different topics. What else are we doing? And just more and more master classes, more and more videos. I want to keep doing this for another 10 years. I'm really scared about my future right now because of the fires. Because if I lose this house, yikes. Francis says, I can't afford physical therapy anymore. I've been going for 1.5 years. It's a lot of money. So thinking that a book you recommended and the wine. Yeah, definitely. Francis, you need to. So the question that you have to ask your physical therapist before you stop is, are my muscles responding to therapy or are they always locking back down into tension? If your muscles are always locking back down into tension, that's when we need to step away from the muscles and we need to look at bones. We need to look at your hips. We need to look at your SI joint. We need to look at your tailbone. Is your tailbone crooked? Was it ever broken? We need to look at your knees. We need to look at your feet. Okay? And so that became the mystery, the final mystery that so again, this is the book. This is the book of books over all things pelvic floor. It is the best book written, in my opinion. It will teach you more than anything else, in my opinion. So Dr. Weiss, the author, was a urologist who saw 35 years ago the bladder treatments didn't work for IC patients, and he wanted to know why. And he was the first mainstream urologist to start looking at muscles. I think it was back in the 80s and maybe even the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. And this Dr. Weiss, a very humble guy, he just took class after class after class to try to learn. And eventually he became an absolute master at physical therapy. Like, I really, really regret that I did not go see him because I live 80 miles from where he was practicing. And now that I know that all mine are being driven by my pelvic floor, oh my God, it would have helped me so much 30 years ago. But I didn't go see him. I really, really regret that. Anyway, so he got to the point where if you walked into his clinic with tight muscles, I can guarantee you would have walked out with muscles very near normal because he was such a master at massaging those muscles. Absolute master. But what became the defining mystery of his career was, why did the muscles lock back down into tension a week later or a month later? He would have some patients call back and say, it's back. And he's like, how is that possible? You walked out with normal muscle. And the doctor then, and the patient came in and he'd examine them and go, man, your muscles are tight again. Why? So he wanted to figure that out. And that's when he started looking at bones. So your hips are supposed to be level. But if you have one leg longer than the other, your hips are out of balance. So now you're walking slightly sideways like that. So that's going to cause pelvic floor issues. If you have a problem with your SI joint, which connects your sacrum to your hip bone. No, your femur to your hip bone. Right? Hold on. Hold on. Let me just get my model. Hold on. My shirt is all funky. All right. All right. So if we look at this model, I have to take out the bits. Hold on. All right. So again, Dr. Weiss wanted to figure out why these muscles down here stayed tight. So if you had one leg longer than the other, bam, you're tilted. Now you're walking like this. That's going to tweak out your muscles over time. Let's look at the back. So here is your SI joint, your hip bone to your sacrum. See that? So that's your SI joint right there. This joint is meant to be very stiff, not supposed to move. However, for some of us, it does start to move. And when that SI joint starts to get get flexible, the piriformis muscle locks down and starts getting very, very tight to stabilize it, to hold it into place. And that's exactly why my left side pelvic floor stays tight. It stays tight because my SI joint is just moving too much. If you have a messed up tailbone, you can see here your tailbone is actually the foundation. It's the center of your pelvic floor. You've got muscles that go to the left and you've got muscles that go to the right. So if one of these muscles, if your tailbone is crooked, if it's going at an angle, now we've got muscles that are out of balance. If it's pointing out instead of under, that's going to tweak your muscles. So we have a lot of tailbone injuries in the pelvic pain population. If you have a bad knee and you limp, that's going to tweak your pelvic floor. But here's what he found. What he found after working with a podiatrist is 95% of his patients who had tight pelvic floor muscles, no matter what they did, it came to how their foot was hitting the ground. And his chapter in here on the feet and the sacrum in the feet is fascinating. Let's go through some of these pictures here for a moment. So this is important because this is to remind you that the forces and stresses and pressures that originate in your feet and legs are rediverted back up into your pelvic floor. And the same is from the top down. Your pelvic floor is absolutely the center of your body. It's the foundation of your body. It carries the weight of your torso. So let's look at this. So this is from the above, hip bone, tailbone, hip bone. The things in pink are the ligaments. So if one of these ligaments snaps, that's going to mess up your pelvic floor and your pelvis too. How a rear-ended car accident will affect your pelvic floor. If you've got your right foot on the brake and you rear end another car, all the forces will be redirected right up into your pelvic cavity. And the odds are that you might not only have a broken foot and a broken femur, you can actually have a broken hip, or even from a fairly minor trauma because of those forces. So here we go. A 37-year-old woman with a sudden unexplained onset of pain in her buttock and leg that radiated down to her heel. She began having pubic and vaginal pain, urinary burning, and a rectal spasm. These symptoms suggested a lumbar disc herniation, a UTI, hemorrhoids, and/or colitis, but all these problems were ruled out with laboratory tests and an MRI of her back. Dr. Weiss's internal physical exam revealed pelvic floor dysfunction. My external examination disclosed a short leg, SI joint instability, SI ligament laxicity, and a tender sacrotuberous ligament. An x ray of the patient's pelvis confirmed a short leg with a significant tilt at the base of her sacrum. A simple shoe lift and SI osteopathic manipulation combined with internal myofascial release to relax the tense pelvic floor muscles relieved all of her symptoms. Here's another one. A 46-year-old fireman developed penile, perineal, and anal pain after lifting a heavy fire hose. Dr. Weiss's examination and nerve testing revealed a pudendal nerve injury for which he administered pudendal nerve blocks and internal myofascial release for 3 years. And during this time, the patient had varying periods of relief, but unless he limited his activity, he experienced a painful flare. Concerned about the patient's limited progress and wondering if a biomechanical problem might explain it, Dr. Weiss referred him to me. I found SI joint instability and performed a series of prolotherapy injections to tighten the SI ligaments, and this solved the problem. This is what I need to have for my SI joint. The patient had durable relief from his pudendal nerve pain, was able to discontinue his pain meds, and finally returned to work. Okay, but here. So getting to the feet here, a footnote about chronic pelvic pain. So let's look at this picture, which is one of my favorite. Okay. So this leg is a normal leg. It's a 90-degree angle to the ground. You see the forces go straight up. The femur moves a little bit to the outside to connect with the sacrum. See that? That's healthy. Look at what happens if you have an ankle that rolls in. If you have an ankle that rolls in, you immediately lose your 90-degree curve. So now we have a leg that's at an artificial angle outwards, and that angle intensifies up in the femur. And if you look closely, here is a stretched out piriformis muscle. Here is a normal piriformis muscle. See that? Look at that stretched out muscle from that ankle rolling inward. Isn't that interesting? So here we go. So let's do a couple of case studies here. A 50-year-old man had been seeing me occasionally over a 10-year period for intermittent perineal pain. I'd been treating his tight pelvic floor muscles and trigger points with internal manual therapy. Though he received great relief, pain flares inevitably occurred. Frankly, I'd never completely understood the mechanics of his symptom flares until he came in one day complaining of hip pain while walking over hiking trails. This led me to question him further and ultimately put us on the right track. I asked if there were any other musculoskeletal problems that he had not thought to mention to me previously. He responded that he'd always had pain at the base of his large toes, which he attributed to arthritis, but because he knew other family members had the same problem, he never sought attention for this, quote, congenital issue. I then examined his feet and found small bunions and moderate overpronation. At that moment, the light went on. I found the origin of his hip pain that he had experienced during hiking and also of his intermittent pelvic pain. Podiatric treatment eliminated his painful flares. Case number 2, a 65-year-old woman came to see me with a history of recurrent urinary frequency and urethral pain without infection. Examinations revealed tight hip rotator muscles with trigger points. I released the trigger points with manual therapy, to which she responded. However, she continued to have painful flares. And while my treatments were effective in the short term, the results only endured for variable periods. I continued to administer periodic therapy for nearly 10 years. At the time of her last visit, armed with this new knowledge, I looked at her feet and found unusually high arches. When I asked her if she had experienced any potential side effects of such an apparent abnormality, she came out with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, knee surgery, and more recently, hip pain. In my mind, I visualized a straight line of mechanical stresses. It began with a foot imbalance, which affected the Achilles tendon, then the knees and hips, and ultimately the pelvic floor. A visit to the podiatrist was the last step in her healing journey. And here's somebody with voiding difficulty, somebody with vulvar and vaginal pain. They were all caused by their feet. Get this book. It's in the IC Network shop. It's $6 cheaper than Amazon. Fabulous book. Dr. Jerome Weiss. All right, guys. Well, I think we're done. So I think we're going to call it here. It's been 3 hours. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can reach me at that phone number, 800-928-7496, icnetwork.org. Please note that I'm a first come, first serve. You can call. It's free. It's not a problem. If you want to, I'm always happy to take a couple of questions, but if you want to spend a long time talking about your case, I'm going to ask you to sign up for a coaching session. All right, that's $50 for 30 minutes. But I will tell you that 95% of my phone calls are free. You're welcome to call, and sometimes we go long, and it's fine. I will never charge you. Okay? We just want to help for a support group. I'm a support group leader. All right, guys. I'm going to say goodbye to YouTube first. See you, YouTube. Be well, my friends.